Hello, travelers, and welcome to my shrine. My name is Amy, and I am a necromancer kitsune. Tonight, I have a book that I would love to read to you. That is, if you're not too scared or anything. So this book is called Scary Stories for Young Foxes by Christian McKay Heidecker. I'm so sorry if I butchered that last name. Now I'm going to read the back of the book, and then we will read the first part. So the back says, "The haunted season has arrived in the Antler Wood. No fox kid is safe. 7 little foxes in the twisted Antler Wood, listening to stories much later than they should. The first flees a teacher with dark, gooey eyes. The second from 6 sisters whose tongues tell lies. The third escapes a woman who peels foxes' skins. The fourth slinks away from the Golgother's grin. The fifth wets the ground when he smells Mr. Scratch. The sixth turns tail when the paw finds its match. The 7th little fox in the wood all alone, facing down a ghost beneath branches of bone. One little fox stays the whole night through. But can she make it to the end? Better yet, can you?" I hope you enjoy part 1. Let's get started, shall we? The haunted season had arrived in the Antler Wood. The sky grayed, the leaves blushed red, and mist coiled through the trees like something alive. Even the pumpkins began to rot and show their true faces. On these chilled autumn nights, it was best for fox kids to remain near their den on the edge of the wood. There, they could feast on apples that tumbled from high branches. They could hunt for smoky acorns and crunchy stick bugs and juicy mice. And when dusk turned to starlight, the kits could return to their den, tuck under their mother's fur, and be soothed by her heartbeat. "Tell us a story," the alpha kid said one misty night. "Make it scary," the 4th said, yipping and hopping. "Yeah," said the 3rd, snarling. "So scary our eyes fall out of our heads." "Please stop biting my face, children," their mother said. The kids behaved themselves while she smoothed out a bed for the night. "Let's see," she said. "How about Rattlebones?" "Mom," the beta said, rolling her eyes. "You told us that story when we were 2 weeks," said the alpha. "It's boring," said the 4th. "Very well," their mom began, ripping out roots that had snuck through the den's walls. "How about Willoughby Wallaby and the Floating Paw?" "Seriously?" the 5th kid said. "That story wouldn't raise the hackles on a field mouse," said the 4th. "It's kid stuff," said the 3rd. "Well," their mom said, "those are the stories I know." 7 little foxes sighed. "Sorry to be a disappointment," she said, lying down. She paused and looked at the kids with all seriousness. "But you must promise that no matter what you do tonight, you will not go to Bog Cavern." The kids' ears perked. "What's Bog Cavern?" the alpha asked. "That's where the old storyteller lives," their mom said. "If you go there, you'll hear a story so frightening it it would put the white in your tail. The kids stared at their thin, dusty brown tails with wide eyes. Wait a second, the fourth said, looking at the fluffy white end of their mom's tail. You heard the story? Only part, she answered, and I wouldn't repeat what I heard for 1,000 mice. The kids gave one another meaningful looks. They didn't want some toothless story like Willoughby Wallaby, which could be forgotten with a shiver and some milk and a lick on the cheek. They wanted a story so scary it would prove their bravery and change them forever. All except the little one, that was. She preferred the sound of her mom's heartbeat. Yes, it may have been wise for fox kids to stay close to the den once the leaves began to fall. But the fog and the frost and the old crimson moon had stirred something in their whiskers. And so they waited till all was quiet, save their mother snoozing. And then 7 little foxes slipped out of their den with a mission to scare some white into their tails. 7 kits snuck into the night, over the log, around the stone, across the creek, and through the grass, deep into the antler wood. The trees threw up their limbs as if to frighten them away. The little ones slowed at their warning. Come on, Sticky Paws, the beta kit whispered. 7 kits crept through the wood, beneath the bone-white branches, past the broken trap, beyond the cave of snoring, over the human bones, to the entrance of Bog Cavern. Roots dripped over its mouth. Fog oozed from its throat. The kid squinted into the darkness, but saw nothing but a pile of bones and skin. Is the storyteller dead? The 5th kit whispered. The 4th kit sniffed. Doesn't smell dead. Someone go nose it awake, the 3rd kid said. Don't look at me, said the beta. I like my nose. Shh, said the alpha. The bone stirred, then jerked up so abruptly, every one of the kid's paws left the ground. The little one scurried behind her beta sister. The bones sat themselves upright, forming a sort of fox silhouette. Eyes flashed green in the darkness. What have we here? The storyteller said, with a voice like spilling dust. Grovelers. The beta gave the alpha a nudge. The alpha said, voice cracking. Would you tell us a scary story? Please? The storyteller sniffed again. Too young. Come back when you've lost your milk teeth. The fox kits clamped their muzzles shut. The little one hoped this was enough to get her siblings to scurry home, but no one budged. The alpha cleared his throat and delivered the speech he'd prepared. We're, smart enough to know that stories are as harmless as the wind through the leaves. They cannot pluck our whiskers, or break our bones, or, strip our skins. A silence grew behind the roots, so complete it seemed it could suck the kids into the darkness. Sure of that, are you? The storyteller asked. 7 little foxes tried not to shiver. 2 of them succeeded. All scary stories have 2 sides, the storyteller said. Like the bright and dark of the moon. If you're brave enough to listen and wise enough to stay to the end, the stories can shine a light on the good in the world. They can guide your muzzles. They can help you survive. A cloud slid off the moon, and shadows reared up around the cavern. The antler wood seemed darker now that there was light. But, the storyteller said, if you don't listen closely, If you turn tail from the horror and don't stay till the end, then the darkness of the story can swallow all hope. It could frighten you so deeply you'll never want to leave your den again. You'll waste away the days with your mother, forever smelling like her milk. The wind pawed at the leaves. The moon shined on the gray fur of the storyteller's face. So, do you still want to hear a scary story? 7 little foxes gulped. Only the alpha nodded. Come closer then, the storyteller said, and we'll see which of you makes it to the end. The alpha marched forward. The third hesitated a moment and then followed. Then came the beta and the 4th, 5th, and 6th, trembling. The littlest fox gazed back through the antler wood, over the bones, beyond the cave, past the trap, beneath the branches, through the grass, across the creek, around the stone, over the log, toward home. She breathed deep and padded close to the cavern with her siblings. 7 little foxes sat and listened. Our story begins, the storyteller said, in the Evie Wood. Part 1. Miss Vix. The sun was only just peeking over the peach-leaf trees, but the heat was already crisping the leaves and steaming the creek and making the dying fields too bright to look at. Roa, Marley, and Mia trotted toward the dappled shade of the Evie Wood, tongues lolling. The grasses buzzed deliciously around them, but on these high sun days, the grasshoppers were as dry and sour as birch bark. What do you think we'll learn today? Roa said. Hopefully about shadows and holes and how to take naps in them, said Mia, panting. Marley was busy rolling in something smelly and didn't hear the question. Come on, Mar, Roa said. We're gonna be late. Every morning, when the sky woke white and watery, when the owls were tucking into their trunks and the snakes had not warmed up yet, the kits gathered beneath the learning tree for their lessons. Their teacher was called Miss Vix, as she taught them what they needed to know while their mother tended to the hunting and the den. In the first few weeks outside the den, Miss Vix had taught the kits how to swish their tails through the reeds to stir up a buzzy explosion of insects, which they could snap out of the air. She taught them how to point their muzzles northward when hunting, waiting for the claw of the sky fox to draw a hazy ring of purple around their prey. She taught them the bird song for eagle and snake, so they knew whether to duck or jump when a predator was near. And when there were no birds in the treetops to sound the alarm, Miss Vix taught them how to perk their ears and listen for the sounds of large feathers brushing the wind or golden scales parting the earth. Months from now, after the breath of autumn blew red into the leaves, the kids would celebrate their Golden Eye Day, and they would set out to claim their own territories. But until that day came, they would learn how to become proper foxes. Something flopped fatly across the 3 kids' path. Roa sniffed the creature's damp skin and pond breath and gagged. Ugh, toad slime. Catcher gets belly, Marley said, hips in a wiggle. Mia collapsed in the shade of a wilting rosebush. Ugh, too hot. Marley bounded after the toad while Roa gazed toward the learning tree and sighed. Don't worry, Mia said, fixing him with her blue swirl eyes. Miss Vix won't get any less pretty, and your eyes won't get any less blue. Roa scolded. He tried to think of a comeback, but instead, his ear twitched. This sent Mia into hysterics. So it's true. She rolled onto her back and addressed him upside down. You want to marry Miss Vix and start an adorable little den with her. He tackled his sister, and they lashed at each other with their milk teeth. But the day's heat quickly made them both give up in a panting puddle. There came a wet plop in a nearby pond, and Marley came bounding back, shaking mud from his muzzle. It was too slippery. Psh, Mia said, rounding to her paws. That jumper was as dry as dust. She trotted toward the learning tree and called back to Roa. Come on, Mr. Vix. Roa followed, grumbling. It was true that Miss Vix had honeyed eyes and lush black ears and golden fur that smelled like butterfly dust. And it was true that the tip of her tail was as white as cloud fluff, and her boots were as black as the space between the stars. But Roa didn't want to start a den with her. He wanted to be like her when he grew up. He admired the arc in his teacher's back whenever she pounced on her prey, the way she could sniff out a scuttling from a distance of 300 tails, and how she had once stolen a badger's feast, piece by piece, by nipping at the badger's ears and getting it to chase her. The three siblings continued on, panting. They passed the sluggish river, fish glittering in the sun. They passed the bush with shriveled raspberries that tasted as bright as lightning. And they passed the lumpy prairie where cottontail season had finally come to an end. The grass was growing brittle, and baby bunnies were no longer as easy to pluck as blackberries off the vine. Melting, Marley said. Evaporating, said Mia. Roa just panted. No birds sang in the Evie wood that morning. The leaves rasped like an old dying snake. After a short sun-baked trout, Roa, Marley, and Mia left atop the tumbled oak that bordered meadow and wood. Huh, Mia said, curling her lip. Does something smell funny to you guys? Roa blinked away the shadows left by the sun. He sniffed the trees. Miss Vix's butterfly scent was lost on the wind. It had been replaced with something darker, something yellow. Ugh, Marley snorted thickly. I don't smell anything. He bounded off the tumbled oak. Mia and Roa gave each other a look and then followed. The three arrived beneath the shade of the learning tree, stopping at the hawthorn bush where Miss Vix greeted them every morning. Their teacher was nowhere in sight. Busy, the kids' alpha sister, sat in front of the bush, head tilted. Every morning when they left the den, she sprinted ahead, like reaching the learning tree was some sort of race. You win again, Biz, Marley said, out of breath. Busy glanced at them. She didn't brag about her win like she usually did. Instead, she stared back into the hawthorn bush. Its branches were trembling. Roa sniffed, and the yellow stench crept up his nostrils and roiled his stomach. Yuck, Marley said, pawing at his nose. What died in there? Smells like shrew barf, Mia said, wrinkling her muzzle. It's... Busy's head tilted to the other side. It's Miss Vix. Roa's ears perked while his heart made a little jump. What the squib is she teaching? Mia said. How to sting so bad you scare away all the prey? Marley laughed. Roa sniffed at the bush again. Beneath the yellow, he caught a faint scent, dusty sweet and familiar. Bits of golden fur flashed between the shifting leaves. In the shadows, he could barely make out the silhouette of a fox. Its head swayed back and forth like an eel in water. Its mouth hung open as if tasting the air. "That's not Miss Fix," Roa said. "Is it?" He took a step towards the bush, but then something sharp clamped down on his tail. He whirled and tackled Busy to the ground. She caught his paw in her teeth. "Don't go in there," she said. Moa loosed his paw from her mouth and gave it a lick. "Maybe it's a game," Marley said, tail wagging. "It is," Mia said. "It's called Who Stinks the Worst." "Marley wins." He pounced on her, and they rolled away. Roa hadn't taken his eyes from the swaying silhouette. Beneath the rustle of leaves, he could hear a hair-raising click of teeth. "What's she doing in there, Biz?" Roa asked his alpha sister. Busy flattened her ears. "When I got here, everything was normal. Normal day. Normal Miss Fix." She swallowed deep and stared into the bush. "Except for Alfie." Alfie may have been the runt of the litter, but he was the most adventurous. Their mom could never get him to stay put near the den, and she'd given up trying long ago. Alfie would disappear for hours at a time and return smelling of orange mud or hairy leaves, and, one time, even bear dung. "He was hiding in the bushes," Busy said, her stutter worse than usual. "And he smelled funny. Miss Fix was trying to get him to come out. She kept asking, 'Are you hurt? Are you hurt?' When he didn't answer, she grabbed him by his tail and pulled him out." Busy swallowed deep. "Alfie looked different. His fur was all muddy and slicked back. His legs were gnawed pink. All the fur on his tail was gone, except a little tuft at the end. His lips jumped off his teeth, and his breath was fast and squeaky. His pupils were as wide as the night sky." Busy whimpered, and Roa cleaned her ears until she was soothed. In the hawthorn bush, the paws of the dark silhouette twitched up off the ground like they stepped in ants. "Miss Fix went to lick Alfie's wounds," Busy said, "but he bit her paw hard. Then he ran off. Miss Fix licked her paw, and I saw blood drip." She turned her nose to a little black spatter in the dust. Roa stared at it. "I asked if she was okay," Busy said, "but she just stood there and trembled. Then she said, 'Class is over,' and crawled into the bush." The silhouette moved its jaws. A breeze made the leaves sharpen themselves against one another. Roa held back a shudder. Had Alfie wandered somewhere and come back smelling of yellow? Had he given the yellow to Miss Fix when he bit her? "Still playing the stinky game?" Mia asked, returning from her battle with Marley. Roa stared into the bush. "I'm gonna go in and check on her." "I don't know about that," Busy said. "Do it," Marley said. "I'd do it, but I don't think my butt would fit in there." Behind the leaves, the silhouette stopped swaying and held perfectly still, as if listening. Roa hesitated. "What if it's a test?" Mia said, narrowing her blue swirl eyes. "We're not supposed to go in strange and stinky places. What if you go in there and Miss Fix bites your scruff, and you fail at everything forever?" Roa rocked paw to paw. "But what if I don't go in there and I fail?" The silhouette seemed to stare at him. as if waiting for an answer. Roa nodded, determined. I'm going in. Well, you said that twice now, Mia said. But times you've gone in there? 0. Roa let out an involuntary whimper. He licked his lips and made a backward wiggle. Then, folding his ears, he plopped to his belly and crawled beneath the leaves. It was dark in the hawthorn bush, but then a soft wind blew, flickering the leaves, and patches of light cleaned the shadows from the silhouette. It was Miss Fix. Roa had never seen his teacher upset before. She had always taken the kid's bites and scratches with the patience of spring. But here, in the hawthorn bush, her lips were curled around the black of her gums, the whites of her teeth. Her eyes were narrowed in dark, gooey slits. Miss Fix? Roa whispered. A shudder ran from his teacher's ear straight to the tip of her tail. She tried to take a step toward his voice, but then wavered and missed. She turned in a half circle, then sat down again. Her gooey eyes stared at nothing. Roa looked at his teacher's paw, sticky with black. Are you hurt, Miss Fix? Do you want me to find Alfie and bite him for you? Miss Fix's head swayed. Her breath sounded choked with cobwebs. What's she doing? Mia whispered from outside the bush. Roa didn't answer. Miss Fix, he said. Are you okay? Miss Fix lifted her snout, and she saw him through the goo. Her muzzle tightened into a snarl, but then she shook her head back and forth, like she was trying to escape a sneeze. A sound bubbled from her throat. Run! Roa's ears flattened. Run where? He had never done anything in the Evie Wood without his teacher's permission. Miss Fix's teeth made that horrible clicking. The sound woke the nerves in Roa's toenails. Run where, Miss Fix? Her breath made a rattling sound. With it came the stench, dark and warm. The scent of butterfly dust was gone, as if the yellow had swallowed his teacher from the inside out. Roa dropped to his belly and scooted back out of the hawthorn bush. Did you pass the test? Mia asked in a chipper voice. Are you guys married now? Her giggles were cut short when there came a snapping of branches and Miss Fix stumbled out of the leaves. The other kids saw their teacher's gooey eyes, her snarled lips, and they backed away, whiskers alert. Busy whimpered, lifting her paws. Maybe we should go. Yeah, Marley said, backing up. I think I hear Mom calling. Roa planted his paws. I'm staying. Mia's tail thumped uncertainly. Their teacher stared at them with her black goo eyes. Her teeth dripped. That's enough class for me today, Mia said. She tried to scamper away, but Miss Vick struck like a snake, snagging Mia by the tail. Mia let out a deafening yelp before kicking free of their teacher's teeth and disappearing into the hawthorn bush, where she fell silent. Busy whimpered. Marley flopped on his side in submission. Roa froze. Their teacher had never bitten any of them before. Miss Fix's gooey eyes flashed back to the three kits, Mia's fur sticking out of her fangs. Miss Fix lunged at each of them in turn. Roa, Marley, Busy. As each kit flinched out of her jaws' reach, the next caught her attention and she rounded on them. Roa backed away from his teacher, heart thumping. He wanted to stay put. He wanted to sniff out the butterfly dust beneath the yellow and coax her back to the surface. But his paws betrayed him. He turned his muzzle toward the den and started to pad away. Behind him, there came a chomp and a tiny yelp. Eep! Busy. She didn't even get a head start. Roa broke into a run. There came a scuffle and another yelp. Ow! Marley. He wasn't laughing anymore. Roa started to sprint. 3 yelps from 3 of his siblings. The yellow stench had swallowed Miss Vix. Now it would swallow them too. Roa ran through the dappled shade of the learning tree and leapt onto the sun-touched moss of the tumbled oak. In the warm light of morning, he second-guessed himself and gazed back towards the hawthorn bush. There was still a world of things to learn. Miss Vix was going to teach them the nap and capture technique. She was going to teach them how to tell if a mouse was playing dead. She was going to teach them how to swim. The hawthorn bush was hidden by the trunk of the learning tree. The only movement was the shifting shadow of the canopy. Busy? Roa croaked. Marley? Mia? His teacher came sprinting around the trunk, fangs bared, drool streaming, gooey eyes fixed on him. Roa's paws kneaded the moss. I give up, Miss Vix. Still, she came, her cobwebbed breath, her bloodied paw, her yellow stench. I fail, Roa shouted at her. I don't pass. I don't want to do this anymore. It wasn't until she leapt from the earth, lips curled, teeth gleaming, that a voice echoed deep in Roa's mind. Never the fields, his teacher had said when she still smelled like butterfly dust. Your legs are too little to escape a hunter in the open. If something is chasing you, hide yourself in the most tangled space you can. Do you understand? Roa might not have understood, but his paws did. As his teacher's shadow swept over him, he slipped off the back side of the tumbled oak, plopped to the ground, and bolted toward the den faster than he thought possible. He heard the crunch of Miss Vix's paws on the trunk behind him as she landed and then leapt again. When he sensed her shadow in his left whiskers, his eyes swiveled and shot him to the right. Soon, he could feel the click, click, click of her hot breath snapping at his tail as his paw leapt and bounded and skittered through the trees. He tried to think of the most tangled space he knew of, the briar patch. The wood was a blurred confusion. Roa couldn't tell which way was which. Then he remembered when Miss Vix taught them how to tell directions. Whenever you point your muzzle northward, your eyes will grow fuzzy with purple. Roa swung his head left, then right, until his vision gained a hazy color, like sunset coming in at the edges. He rocketed towards the purple, crossing through lumpy prairie, and then arrived at the briar patch. He wriggled into a whisker-wide crevice and crawled to the heart of the thorny shadows. There he crouched, trying to catch his breath. Safe. Safe. A snarl. Roa leapt just as Miss Vix's fangs ripped through the brambles. She thrashed towards him, not even flinching as the thorns tore at her gooey eyes. Roa wriggled out of the briar patch and ran. His teacher chased him across the grasses, where she taught them to pierce the soft earth with their muzzles. She chased him through the tunnel where they dug for earthworms. She chased him around the blackberry bushes where they plucked dessert, and down Tumble Hill where they played hawks and hunters. At the bottom of the hill was a sunken creek. Roa tried to leap to the far side, but his ribs struck the ledge and he flipped backward, splashing into the shallows with a small yelp. Quivering, he slunk out of the mud and pressed into the shadow of the crumbling bank, trying to catch his breath without making too much sound. Please be a test, he whispered. Please, please, please. Moments passed. Flies droned, a raven called. Roa's eyes darted left and right. If he stayed in the sunken creek, Miss Vix would be able to drop down on him from above. But which direction should he run? Up creek or down? Something told him one way would lead to freedom, the other to his teacher. Roa pricked his whiskers. He couldn't see Miss Vix's shadow on the opposite bank or hear her cobwebbed breath over the trickling water. He couldn't smell the yellow stench over the dead fish in the creek. How would he know which way to go? Craw, craw. The black feathers of a raven gleamed on a high branch above. Birds had the best view in the forest. They could tell you when something was coming and from what direction. But bird languages were tough. You had to know which birds sang which songs and then remember the subtle changes and trills for what they meant. Roa wasn't as bad at remembering the songs as Mia, but he was nowhere near as good as Busy, who seemed to have feathers sprouting out of her ears. Craw, craw. I hope you're saying she's coming from the right, Roa whispered to the bird. He headed up creek. Whether Miss Vix had actually taught him something about birds or it was pure luck, Roa would never know. But when he rounded up the lip of the sunken bank, he saw his teacher on the far end, staring into the water, muzzle bleeding from the briars. Her head lifted slowly. The moment she caught his eye, she bounded over the water and came after him. Again, Roa ran. He panted in the stifling heat. His heart pounded, ready to burst. If this was a test, how could he pass it once and for all? He needed to find somewhere he could hide where his teacher could not fit. There's always a mole burrow, Miss Vix had said. It's a tight fit, but if your whiskers can get through, so can you. Roa darted south this time, opposite the purple, to the shallow part of the river. He bounded across the slimy stones, each threatening to roll were he not quick enough. He heard no splashing behind him, but he didn't stop leaping until he made it to the opposite side. Only then did he dare look back. Miss Vix skidded to a stop on the bank. Her gooey eyes stared at the river. She tried stepping on the first stone, but the moment her paw touched the water, her body seized and arched backward as if something had snatched her by the muzzle and pulled. Her spine bent so far back she could have bitten her own tail. Roa shook his head, confused. Miss Vix had never been frightened by water. He wanted to go to her, run his muzzle along her back, make her feel okay again. But fear drove him the rest of the way to the mole barrow. The entrance was barely a crack, pinched by tree roots. He was quite a bit bigger than the last time their teacher made him and his siblings enter the burrow, but he tried to squeeze inside anyway. His whiskers bent against the soil. The roots folded his ears. A stone yanked his hair and squished his stomach so tight he almost lost his mouse and blackberry breakfast. He was stuck. Roa clawed and wriggled, but he couldn't slide any deeper. The stone dug painfully into the top of his hip. His hind legs kicked, and his tail whirled. He was numb with the fear of being bitten. He stopped struggling. He remembered Miss Vix's honeyed eyes, her golden fur, the way they used to be. And then he wriggled and kicked with every bit of him that wanted to pass her test. The stone crumbled free from the earth, and he slid into darkness. His breath came in sobs. Roots and damp soil cradled him on all sides, close and dark and soothing. His fur prickled in the cool of the underground as his breath quieted and his heartbeat finally slowed. Safe. Safe. Roa kept his eyes on the small, craggy entrance. He waited for Miss Vix to stick her snout into the burrow and tell him he'd passed the test. He waited for her to help him squeeze back into the sunlight, where she would lick the mud from his fur and nibble the briars from his tail and tell him he was faster and cleverer than all of his siblings. The wind whistled outside. With it came a sound, a panting, breath like a spider's nest, that awful clicking of teeth. Click, click. Roa assured his pounding heart that Miss Vix couldn't fit inside. She was too big. Click, click. His ear twitched. This clicking sounded different than before. The breath was higher pitched. Click, click, click. He flattened his ears as a snout slid into the craggy entrance, breathing the yellow stench into the burrow. It sniffed. Roa's heart went cold. This was not Miss Vix's nose. It was too small, too dry. The fur on the muzzle was muddy and slick. Alfie? Roa said. The runt looked terrible. His paws were gnawed bloody. His tongue, now black, dangled between his teeth, and his neck twitched like a broken branch in the wind. Roa pressed his back against the earthen wall. There was no exit, no escape. What had felt close and safe was now much too tight as Alfie wheezed and wriggled his small, ravaged body into the burrow. The last thing Roa saw was his own reflection in his brother's black eyes, as wide and unseen as a starless sky. On the far side of the Evie wood, a small fox arrived back at her den, panting. "Mama? Mama?" A mother fox stepped into the light. "Mia, where are your brothers and sister?" she sniffed. "What's wrong? You're bleeding." Mia caught her breath and then started to cry. "I ran, Mama. I ran away." "Hush, hush," her mom said. "Catch your breath." Mia didn't wait for her breath to catch. She told her mom the story. She told her how Miss Vix had lashed out and bitten Marley and Busy and then chased after Roa. She told her about the yellow stench. Something in her mom's eyes changed. "What are we waiting for?" Mia asked, her paws itching to go back the way she'd come. "We have to help them." When her mom didn't move, Mia opened her mouth to drag her towards the learning tree, but her mom stepped away. "Mia?" Her mom's voice trembled. "How did you hurt your tail?" Mia sniffed at the blood scabbing at her tail's tip. "Miss Vix tried to bite it." "Mia?" Her mom kept her distance. "Think carefully. Did Miss Vix bite your skin?" I don't think so," Mia said. All she wanted was her mom to lick her tail better. She just pulled out some of the hairs, I think." Her mother looked lost for a moment, then determined. "Come, Mia." Confused, Mia trotted after her, over the leafy roof of their den and past the sandy loam to the nearby sipping creek. "Drink," her mom said. "But Mama," Mia's paws wouldn't hold still. "Roa, he's in trouble. Marley, Busy, they're—" "Drink," I said. Confused, Mia dipped her muzzle into the creek and took a small lap. The water was cool and clean on her tongue. She hadn't realized how thirsty she was. While she drank long and deep, her mom crouched on the bank, watching Mia's mouth as if she expected the water to leap out of it. When Mia swallowed, her mom gave a deep sigh and trotted away from the den. Mia licked the droplets from her beard. "Where are you going? Roa, Busy, Marley, Alfie, they're that way." Her mom turned her eyes to the edge of the field, to the shadows of the learning tree. "We must leave them." She bounded up Jackrabbit Slope, and Mia practically tripped over her own paws trying to catch up. But where? Why? To the north, her mom said. Beyond the forest, where the yellow cannot follow. But Mama, Mia sniffed, too exhausted to cry. We have to go back. I left them. Her mom continued on, ducking beneath the drooping leaves of a willow and slipping into a thicket of ivy. We don't need to worry about your brothers and sister now. She sniffed once. Miss Fix will take care of them. Mia gazed back down the slope. She traced the sipping creek as it curled into the river, which flowed past the leaning tree. The shadows seemed darker now, the bright spots gray with rising dust, almost like the Evie wood, her home, was going to sleep. Was the yellow stuff? Mia said. Was it all a test? Her mom leapt down the other side of Jack Rabbit. Yes, she said. It was a test, and you passed. The other kids still have learning to do. But you? She glanced at Mia with shining eyes. You're all grown up now. Really? Mia said, following. She struggled to untangle a knot of ivy with her snout. I don't feel grown up. Well, you are, her mom said, and with a snip of her jaws, she set Mia free. You did so well in your classes that it's time for you to leave the Evie wood. Her mom continued downhill at a faster pace, but Mia stopped and quirked her head toward the treetops. Her mom had told her that she would celebrate her Golden Eye Day after the leaves fell, and that only then would she and her siblings set out on their own. But there were the leaves, still fluttering on the branches. But Mama, Mia began. Hurry now, her mom said. Mia bounded to catch up. You'll be with me the whole time? Every step of the way. Okay, Mia said, walking a little more easily now. That's good. The world opened before them, new and wide and unfamiliar, and although Mia's paws still trembled, she tried to walk like a fox whose tail didn't sting and who wasn't afraid of the things she'd seen. Mia followed her mom's sweet apple scent as she tried to pretend she was more grown up than her pounding heart would let her believe. The branches of the antler wood creaked in a soft wind. That's the scariest part, right? The beta asked. That's as bad as it gets? The storyteller remained silent in the cavern. That wasn't that scary, the third kid said. Are you kidding? Said the fifth. He counted on his toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 foxes died. The fourth cleared his throat. The yellow stench isn't real, right? More silence from the cavern. The fourth kneaded his paws and whimpered. Did Mia and her mom ever find another den? The fifth asked. Patience, the storyteller whispered. The fourth's ear twitched with realization. Oh, right, Mia, that's... Hush, the beta said. The little one curled her paws beneath her chest to keep them from shaking. Boz? Said the alpha. Bozzy, the sixth kid, hadn't blinked since the story ended. The little one tried to see into her brother's eyes, but they stared straight through her into the dark of the wood. Bozzy? The beta said. Do you need to go home? Without a word, the sixth kid stood, turned his nose towards the den, and left. 6 little foxes. We're ready for the next part, the alpha said. Yeah, said the third. We're ready for the scary part. The little one gulped, hoping the scary part was over and done with. What's more frightening than a rabid teacher? The storyteller asked. The kids tilted their heads questioningly, ears still flat. Perhaps, the storyteller continued, someone in your family who is just as cruel, even though they are not diseased. The wind made the leaves whisper, ruffling the little one's fur. She didn't like where this was going. On the other side of the forest lay the bolder fields, the storyteller said. One night, the moon shined high and bright, just like it is now. 6 little foxes gazed into the sky. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed this part. Please leave a like and comment and tell me what you think of the story so far. And I will see you for part 2 with the 6 sisters. Have a good night.